Okay, so my 120 gallon acrylic aquarium from TruVu has been delivered. So let's begin the unboxing process, and then we'll talk about why I chose this tank and had it made the way I had it made, and why I chose TruVu to make it. Okay, here's my 120 gallon 4x2x2 acrylic tank from TruVu. It's just beautiful, really well made to spec. If you look at their tanks on the website, you'll notice that the side and front panels are really just one piece that they bend on the corners. But because this tank is just going to be sitting in a kind of a nook where you can't see it from the left or right sides, where you'll only be able to view it from the front, I thought it would look nicer with traditional squared corners. And just some of the things I was able to ask them to do. Their standard acrylic thickness is 3/8 inches, and I had them upgrade it to 1/2 inch thick panels. And I asked them to drill 3 holes on the rear right and 1 hole on the rear left, so that I can put my filter intake and outlet and heater through these, and then use this for the heater probe and the pH probe. Really happy with the way it looks. Not a scratch on it. It's just absolutely beautiful, and really nicely, cleanly cut openings at the top. Comes with the 2 covers for those openings that currently have the protective film still on them. So, really nice. I'll be talking in just a minute about why I chose acrylic over glass. But first, let's get this thing moved into position on the cabinet. Before I put the tank on the stand, I just wanted to show the self-leveling mat that I ordered from Amazon. It's about 3/16 of an inch thick. It has a sticky backing on it, and it'll absorb any level irregularities that there may be with all the weight of the tank sitting on the top of the stand. It'll just kind of help smooth out the weight distribution. And there's also one under the stand as well, so that the weight of the stand isn't directly applied to the hardwood floors through the various frame pieces that are under there. So I would recommend, on a tank the size of this one, to use the self-leveling mats, especially with an acrylic tank. Alright, so I've got the tank on the stand. It's looking great so far, and now I'm going to talk about acrylic versus glass and why I chose acrylic for this particular tank. First of all, when it comes to scratching, glass actually wins in that category because it's a harder material. Acrylic is soft, scratch is much easier. You have to be careful even what you clean the surface with, because even the wrong fabric can cause a scuff. Fortunately, that could be buffed out if it was a minor scratch on acrylic, but overall, you're just at a higher risk of scratching your tank. As far as weight goes, glass can be 4 to 10 times as heavy as acrylic. This tank, 120 gallon tank, was super easy to move in and put on the stand from the garage compared to what it would have been if it was glass. Plus, it puts less strain on your aquarium stand. As far as breaking and cracking goes, acrylic is much tougher than glass. It's less likely to shatter. It's almost impossible for there to be a problem related to the seam and it's 17 times stronger than glass when it comes to impact resistance. When it comes to the seams, the solvent actually bonds the two acrylic panels together at a molecular level. It's effectively one piece of acrylic once this bonding process takes place between the panels. Glass, on the other hand, has the silicone, and they're famous for having issues over time. You know, people are having to drain their tanks, empty them out, scrape out all the silicone, reseal them. I don't want to go through any of that, and I don't want to go through any insecurity as far as whether or not I'm going to have a leak through the seams, because I have hardwood floors, and one of my main goals with this tank is not having a leak. I haven't had a leak before with glass, but that's one strong reason to choose acrylic over glass. You just have a more sound and secure tank. It's less likely to leak. As far as shape goes, and that's not demonstrated here with this basic rectangular shape, but acrylic can give you a lot more options. You know, cylinder tanks, half-cylinder tanks, even the way TruVu builds a lot of their tanks with the side and front panel actually being one piece of acrylic where they bend the edges, and so you have a curved edge tank. Glass, basically you can build squares, cubes, octagons and things like that, but you're not going to really see curved shapes with glass aquariums. As far as strength, acrylic is 17 times stronger than glass for impact resistance and far less likely to break because of an impact. Glass is pretty hard to break, but this is much harder to break. As far as light refraction, that's another thing that kind of matters to me is, you know, with glass you have more distortion. It's not as much of a problem on smaller tanks, but when you get to thicker glasses, you're not really looking at the fish where it actually is anymore. This is just what you see is what you get through acrylic, and it doesn't even matter how thick the acrylic is. So that also has an impact on clarity. Acrylic doesn't have any issues with clarity. I mean, it's just super clear. It's you know, glass tanks, if you want to get that expensive Starfire panel on the front because it has low iron, well, this is no iron, so this is much more clear than even Starfire glass panels. Insulation is another factor. When you have a tank that you keep to 82 to 86 degrees, you're heating your tank a lot more with glass because that heat is escaping through the glass. Acrylic has a much more insulative property to it, so you don't have to run that heater as much to maintain that temperature, and that comes in handy if you have cold climates or keep your house at a colder temperature. One thing to know about acrylic versus glass is that acrylic is also easier to customize and drill after the fact, and you'll read out there on the forums people talking about, I really wanted to do an overflow in my tank, but I have a tempered glass tank, so I can't drill it. What do I do now? Acrylic, you can just drill it, it's no problem. It doesn't really lose its integrity, and it's not going to shatter into 1,000 pieces on you if you put a hole in it intentionally. As far as cost goes, glass is typically less expensive than acrylic, but TruVu has excellent pricing on their tanks, and you know, I got this for less than a quote for a glass tank of the same size. That's one of the reasons I chose TruVu over other manufacturers. As far as TruVu goes, I didn't choose it just because it's less expensive than other manufacturers. TruVu's been around since 1972, so that's a long time to be making aquariums. It's hard to find a lot of aquarium companies out there that have been manufacturing tanks for that long, and they were actually one of the first, if not the first, commercial aquarium manufacturer to work with acrylic. So they've been doing acrylic tanks for a really long time. So, you know, the combination of the price, their experience, how long they've been in business, and I would also say I was able to tell them exactly how I wanted it drilled. I was able to tell them that I wanted thicker panels, 1/2 inch versus 3/8. I was able to tell them I wanted a black back panel. I was able to choose a joined panel with a squared edge option over the rounded option that they have. Overflows, I mean, there's a lot of flexibility. Now, there's a lot of other tank builders out there that give you that flexibility, but I really thought it was easy to communicate with them. You just pick up the phone, you know who you're going to get, they're willing to talk with you and answer any questions.